despair. Back for Hall. Across, save Bobrovsky. Puck loose, top of the crease, and Bobrovsky will pounce on it. Reinhart with it, right circle. Back up top, Barkov will go down low with it. He'll get it right back. Along the boards, out in front. Backhand chance to score. Sam Reinhart with a power play goal. 11:30 left here in the first. And the Panthers get the first goal of this Eastern Conference final. Carolina, Jarvis with it, out in front, they score! Sebastian Aho deflects it out in front with 14.8. Carolina is on the board.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was basically it for the Hurricanes in terms of being competitive in the game. Hi, everyone. It's the Canes Corner podcast. I am Adam Gold, and by now you understand that technology and I don't exactly see eye to eye, so we're kind of raw tonight. I apologize for that. Hey, at least we got the highlights going. We are brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it is for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sam Meehan and his crew do a great job. The one thing they can't do over at the Aluminum Company is win an Eastern Conference Eastern Conference final game. Right now, the Hurricanes haven't done that in a while. And I'm going to start there before we get into the nuts and bolts of the game. Not that the players in the locker room going into the game feel it. Because I don't think what happened in 2019 has any bearing on tonight. I don't think what happened in 2009 has any bearing on tonight. But I do think what happened in 2023 does have some bearing on tonight. And I think Carolina looked at this evening as an opportunity to prove that they belong on the same ice with the defending Stanley Cup champions. And when their opportunities presented themselves, and we're going to kind of fold into the next, the next topic here in a second. When the opportunities presented themselves, they just weren't able to capitalize. It was not a great hockey game tonight. Just wasn't. Florida's not here to entertain anybody. Florida did what they needed to do in the first period and then pretty much shut it down the rest of the way. But I thought the Hurricanes, especially when they fell behind, played more of a nervous game. And when you look at the way this game played out, I thought Carolina had some opportunities early, some opportunities on that first power play, didn't get it, and then boom, the Panthers get a goal, and we'll go through that play as well. And I thought from that point on, Carolina really was kind of searching for whatever it is they were going to be able to do against Florida. And I know that they have lost 13 straight Eastern Conference Finals games, going all the way back to 2009, getting swept by Pittsburgh, getting swept by Boston in 19, getting swept by Florida in 23, and now losing game one on your ice tonight. I think that's something for the media. I think that's something for the fans. And while it's not necessarily something for those guys in the locker room, I do think there is an element of pressing that set in after falling behind 1-0 and then quickly 2-0. And we'll get to those goals in a moment. Because I think that even though there's only half a team here from 2023, by the way, Florida and Carolina each have 9 skaters and a goalie from those teams, from the teams that played in 2023, 2 years ago. And that series was super close. And the Hurricanes lost all 4 games. And while it was an incredibly close series, it was still a sweep. And Carolina had to live with the fact that they got swept out of the Eastern Conference Finals by the Florida Panthers, who didn't go on to win that Stanley Cup. They won the next one. But think about real quick about Florida. Think about that 3-year run, this 3-year run, now a 4-year run. They were the President's Trophy winners in 22. Lost in the second round of the playoffs to Tampa. The next year, they changed coaches. They go from Andrew Burnett to Paul Maurice. Takes them about 4 months out of the 6 to figure out who they are. And all of a sudden, they finally get it. They make the playoffs in the last few weeks. They go to Boston. They beat the Bruins, who were the best regular season team in the history of the league. They rally from 3-1 down to win that. They go to the Stanley Cup Finals. They lose to Vegas in 5. And then the following year, they come back and touch them all. And now this year, thanks to some injuries, which are still bothering them, Matthew Tkachuk ain't right. With all of that, Florida's still the best team. They're the best team. They know they're the best team. And they have the confidence to know that, hey, they don't have to play great to win. They just have to play great when it matters the most. And honestly, the Hurricanes can take a lesson from that. You don't have to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to give up chances. But when you get yours, you got to take them. And that brings us to the second part of this, because I do think the Hurricanes played a nervous game after the first handful of minutes, and maybe even during, because I talk about this all the time. And I'll use a sport like tennis as an example. If you pay attention and you can find the stats from any Grand Slam match, not so much when it's a blowout, when it's one-sided, when it's 6-2, 6-2, 6-3. But even in a straight sets match where the games are, 6-4, 7-5, whatever, like that, you'll be surprised at how even the points are. That the guy who won the match or the woman who wins the match only wins a handful of points more. And that's because every sport comes down to moments. What do you do in tennis? What do you do in the big points? Here in this game tonight, what do you do when the moments present themselves, or you have the opportunity, or in this case, impact the game in a positive way? And so I want to run through 3 moments in the game that decided this game tonight. 3 moments. And the first one comes, I don't know, maybe we were 3 minutes in. Carolina's off on a 2-on-1. Aho, Jarvis, Nico Mikkola in the middle. Sebastian Aho was always going to pass the puck. Mikkola's job as a defenseman is to take away the pass and leave Aho to Bobrovsky. Aho was always going to pass that puck. We could all tell. Mikkola goes down, belly on the ice. The pass across never gets to Jarvis. Sebastian Aho's got to be more deceptive there. He's got to be more confident that he can shoot and beat Bobrovsky. But in the beginning of the game, when you need your guy to do something, look, even if Aho doesn't score there, you got to shoot that puck. Pass never gets through. Carolina doesn't get a shot attempt on a 2-on-1 breakaway with your 2 guys. Not a breakaway, 2-on-1 odd man chance with your 2 best offensive players. They don't get anything. It's an unacceptable outcome of that. You've got to get a shot. They didn't. That's moment 1. That's where Carolina did not win the moment. Mikkola, who played a good game tonight, he wins that battle. The second moment is the power play. Carolina actually had a couple of good chances on the first power play, and then a terrible call, but a call that was made. Can't cry about it, but it was a bad call. Aho gets, I think, cross-checked in the face, whatever. And he does something so tame after the whistle, but he got sent off. Rod Brindamore said it after the game. It's a bad call. You got to send, if you're going to send anybody off, you send them both. But nope, they just gave Florida power play. Hey, Carolina just got a power play. Sam Bennett for a hook behind the net. Carolina got a power play. You had your chance. Didn't take it. Florida got a power play. Bad call or not. Florida, moment, goal. Carter Verhaeghe, backhand try. Jarvis would have liked to have seen a physical response to Verhaeghe in front. He tried to get his stick there. Wasn't close enough. Maybe he wasn't close enough to be physical there either, but I think there was an opportunity. Anyway, that's a goal. Thought that of the 5 goals that Frederik Andersen allowed, it's probably one where he allowed himself to be small, gave up the short side, but there was a lot of goal to shoot at, even though Andersen could have come out a little bit more, challenged Verhaeghe, didn't. He was low, plenty of goal, 1-0 Florida. That's moment number 2 where Carolina lost the moment. The other moment comes in the third period. In the second period. And it's already 3-1 Florida. And we'll get to the other goals in a minute, but it's already 3-1 Florida. You're in the second period. You've got an opportunity. You are pushing. You have an opportunity to get it to 3-2. Bobrovsky doesn't have a stick. Roslovic gets the pass in the dead slot. His shot, I haven't seen a replay of it, to be honest. I thought it was a pad save by Bobrovsky. But it might have been a glove. I think it was a left pad save. That is a situation where I'm not saying it has to be a goal, but maybe it should have been. But again, it's a moment. Roslovic's shot, saved by Bobrovsky, without a stick, dead slot, got to miss him. Bobrovsky wins the moment. 3 opportunities to impact the game in favor of Carolina. All 3 went to the Florida Panthers. And here we are. And now Carolina's trailing in the series 1-0. And now we bring in all those other things. How much pressure is on Carolina Thursday? And look, actually it is tomorrow right now. It's already Wednesday. So how much pressure is on Carolina on Thursday to make sure they don't go to Florida 2-0 down? So we see all of this stuff already building. Sports is about moments, seizing the opportunities. If you don't, I don't care what happens with an official. I don't care what happens with anything. If you don't take the opportunities when they're there, you really have nobody to blame but yourselves. And Florida didn't play a great game today, but Florida didn't have to either. Once they got the 2-goal lead, if there is one thing that, I'm not going to say they learned it from Tampa, but I've always said when Tampa was in their heyday, if Tampa got a first period goal and they wanted to win the game 1-0, they would win it 1-0. And Florida has a lot of those same qualities. And whether that's a Paul Maurice influence or from watching their neighbors to the north in Florida, Florida can do that too. They know how to shut it down in front of Bobrovsky. They also know how to play an ornery, mean game. Well, I don't think Carolina plays, but I don't think the reason Carolina lost this game was because Carolina went too far to be physical or wasn't physical enough. I thought Carolina was good in that department tonight. If they might have even been the more physical team. Did Florida get away with a few things? Probably. Did Carolina get away with a few things? Probably. We don't have to go too far to find the reasons why Carolina lost the game. I just gave you 3 moments that Carolina lost and Florida won, which one leads to no goal because no shot. The other is a goal, and the other is a save by Bobrovsky. It's just that simple. There were other plays too, but I'm telling you the big moments, those three for me were the three biggest moments in the game. And Florida won all three of those moments. All right, let me get to a couple of players before we get out of here. So we'll start in net, where it's pretty clear that Sergei Bobrovsky was better than Frederik Andersen tonight. 5 goals on 20 shots, not good for the save percentage, but we shouldn't care about stats at this point. Bobrovsky came in with a .901 save percentage in the playoffs. I watched him play. I didn't think he was great early on, but I'll tell you when Bob has been great, when he had to be. So if you go back to, I think it was game 3 of their series with Toronto. Remember, they lost the first 2 games in Toronto. And Bob was not great in those 2 games. And then he wasn't awesome in the first 2 periods of game 3. And Florida was trailing by a couple of goals. But Bobrovsky played great in the 3rd period, and he was better in the overtime, and he has essentially been Sergei Bobrovsky since. And he was every bit as good tonight. The Aho goal beats him with a skate. I really thought it was going to come off the board because I thought Aho directed it in with a skate. But if it's not a distinct kicking motion, they will allow it, and that's what happened. I also might have PTSD in terms of Hurricanes goals coming off the board. Real quick, I usually don't pay attention to the comments. I'm always soft on officials. I just said it was an awful call. Don't come to the podcast and be dumb. I'm begging you. Don't come to the podcast and be dumb. Now I will move away from the comments so we don't have to tell people that they're dumb. Bad call. You still got to stop the penalty. Still got to stop the power play. But clearly Andersen not tip-top of his game. I don't think it's about 4 days off. I don't think it's about him wearing down. I think the first goal got him. Second goal, he was screened by Morrow. We'll get into that in a second because the next topic is going to be something that directly addresses Scott Morrow. I thought it was a tough night for Carolina's rookies. Jackson Blake scored a goal, but he wasn't any good tonight. And that's unfortunate because Carolina needs Jackson Blake to be good if they're going to win this series. Well, he doesn't have to be great, but he can't be a liability. And I thought tonight he was a bit of a liability. And I love Jackson Blake. So I have been among his biggest supporters all year long, where he belongs in Carolina's lineup. And right now, I think he is properly slotted in Carolina's lineup in the bottom 6. But I thought he struggled tonight. I thought he was a little antsy with the puck. He had an opportunity, trying to remember who the skater was down the right side. He had a clear lane for a diagonal pass into the offensive zone, and it would have been a glorious scoring chance. And Blake whiffed on the pass, fanned on it. Just the momentum of him starting to move it forward just kind of slid the puck slowly away from him. It was an unfortunate, tough night for Jackson Blake. Does he get the goal? Yes. Does he feel better about his game? Probably not, because he knows, because he's a smart kid and a really, really good young player. But it wasn't a good night for Jackson Blake. I thought Logan Stankoven was a bit of a mixed bag, but for somebody who went through a playoff run last year, getting to a conference finals with the Dallas Stars, and I know he's a rookie, I don't really consider him a rookie. He made some good plays. I thought he had some bad moments, but I certainly don't think he was bad tonight. I'll tell you who was. Scott Morrow was. It's no good. He had some decent moments in the offensive end in the first period, but for the most part, Morrow's not ready for this. The head coach knows. But for those of you who want to see Alexander Nikishin, and I do think you'll see him again on Thursday if Jalen Chatfield can't go, what Carolina it's very possible. I wouldn't be shocked either if Riley Stillman drew in. I do think Rod will go to Nikishin. But if we're being honest, Alexander Nikishin was in Game 5 in Washington. And Rod didn't want to put on the ice. Frankly, he'd just as soon play 5 defensemen. And to an extent, that's what he did in the third period. But here's what Morrow did. We had the screen on Frederik Andersen on the second goal. Look, it's a Jordan Staal turnover. So that mistake happens there in the corner to the left. If Freddie, you're looking out from Freddie's goal, to the left of Freddie Andersen, Jordan Staal turns the puck over in the corner. But Morrow has the coverage on Aaron Ekblad there. He's in front, right? Make a decision. Either go get him or get out of the way or go down and block the shot. You can go down and block the shot, but Morrow stood and screened. And while Freddie did move for the shot, and it was a great shot inside the right post, so maybe Freddie doesn't stop it anyway, but you got to give your goaltender a better chance. I watched a lot of Scott Morrow this year, and I thought there was a number of good things that he can do. He's got good offensive instincts. He's good with the puck on the move. He's a good passer. But right now, he has a lot to learn about how to defend at the NHL level. And I know, man, do we fall in love with prospects. And we love them so much, and they play so well in the American Hockey League. And that's the minor leagues, man. And when you see them at the NHL level, it's really hard to make that transition. In my opinion, Morrow needs another year, or at least half a year, of seasoning in the minor leagues. Is he going to get that year? I don't know. I don't know what Carolina is going to do with their roster in this offseason. I don't know if they're going to add to the blue line. I don't know if they're going to make moves to create more space. I mean, the Hurricanes are $31 million under the cap today with just one forward and, I don't know, one defenseman to get. They're going to have to spend money just to get to the floor. They go after a top defenseman to pair with Jacob Slavin, assuming that Brent Burns is either going to retire or go play for another organization. I don't think Burns will be back here. I don't know what Dmitry Orlov's going to do. Maybe the Hurricanes will re-sign him. I think he has been really good the last couple of months. He's been good in the playoffs. Didn't play a ton tonight, though, so I'm a little confused about that. Anyway, but Morrow just struggled tonight. He screens Andersen on the second goal. He was tentative with the puck. At times during the regular season, when there's not as much pressure, you'll see the quick release from Morrow, like we see from Walker, like we see from Burns. You'll see that. You'll see more decisive plays in the offensive end of the ice. We didn't really see that tonight. There were a couple of moments, but for the most part, not great from Morrow. We had the delay of game puck over glass. You don't usually see it from across the ice. Usually it's something where you're trying to clear the puck up the boards and you just miscalculate and you backhand it out of the rink. No, man. He was on the right side of the rink skating out. He was wide of the faceoff dot and he cleared it into the crowd across center ice, across the rink. I hadn't seen that before. Yeah, that I thought he was watching the play, I think, on the fifth goal. He was a -3 tonight and a deserved -3. And he only played a little over 12 minutes. I don't think Rod Brindamore said, yeah, he struggled. It's not a good spot for him to be in. And this is something I'll just bring this up now. I said this before the trade deadline when Carolina was thinking, what do we need? What do we need? They brought in Mark Jankowski. We'll talk about changes I think Rod Brindamore can make. They brought in Mark Jankowski. They needed that. But they also needed a bona fide NHL defenseman as depth. Here's what they don't have. And maybe it's a miscalculation because you thought Alexander Nikishin would be here in time, would play in the minor leagues, maybe get a couple of games in the NHL, and you'd be able to use him. Except prospects are prospects. They are not sure things. My opinion, and I said it at the time, was that the Hurricanes needed to get an NHL defenseman. Ty Smith, not an answer. Riley Stillman, not an answer. Scott Morrow, not an answer. Alexander Nikishin, if he draws in on Thursday, we'll find out whether or not he can help them in the playoffs. I'm telling you, there were a lot of people who know the game that thought Nikishin would be able to step in and just, boom, be off and running. But I watched the game in Washington where he played 10.5 minutes, and he was, at best, meh. He had a couple of good moments. The defense he played on Alexander Ovechkin on that one shift to knock the puck off his stick, chase him out of the zone, clear the puck away from him. I thought that was really good. And he looked like he has a good, lively shot. But he also gave the puck away. He also struggled to handle the puck under pressure. And I didn't think he looked particularly fast. Again, it's such a small sample size, and you don't know how indecision and unfamiliarity plays a role into how a guy looks, and whether or not you're thinking and how that slows you down. But he didn't look ready to me either, and now Carolina is going into what amounts to a must-win game 2, and if they don't have Chatfield, they've got 5 defensemen that Rod Brind'Amour trusts. I do think Nikishin would get the call back, but I would not expect anything other than stopgap minutes because he didn't look like he was ready for Washington, and Florida is way better than Washington. Couple of other things, and then we'll jump out of here. Statistically speaking, it looks like a good game for Sebastian Aho. His line generated a lot of scoring chances. They had more grade A's than the line they played against, which was Bennett, Tkachuk, Verhaeghe. At 5-on-5, there wasn't a lot from that line. But I thought Aho, Jarvis, and Svechnikov were pretty good as a group statistically. But I thought that was a B- game for him. He gets the goal off his skate. It was a big goal. I think they played physical, all 3 of them. And I didn't hate them as a group. But they also didn't leave their imprint on the game. And when you come out and you host game 1 of an Eastern Conference Finals, your best players got to leave their mark on the game, even if you don't win. I thought Andre probably was the best of the 3. I think Jarvis and Aho were good, but not good enough. And Jarvis talked about it after the game. That was a great pass from Svechnikov for a redirect, and Jarvis just missed. I mean, that's got to be – you got to put that on net. Andre didn't shoot the puck particularly well tonight. He shot it, but he hit Bobrovsky with a bunch of his shots. I thought Carolina did that a few times tonight. But if Aho, and think about his first period, he has the pass into oblivion with 2-on-1 with Jarvis. Then, I think in his third shift, he was flipped. He and Staal flipped. All of a sudden, I have Staal playing with Jarvis and Svechnikov, Aho playing with Martinook and Carrier, and I don't know the reasoning for it other than if I were Rod, am I sending Sebastian Aho a message? Am I saying to him, hey, look, if you're not going to shoot the puck, why don't you just go to the checking line with Martinook and Carrier, and we'll let Staal play with Svechnikov and Jarvis. I don't know what Rod Brind'Amour is saying there, but might be something along those lines. Before the first period was over, everything was back to normal. But it was a little bit of a disappointment. I know there are people upset that Aho missed the breakaway. I'm not sure he ever had great control of the puck. He got a good shot off. Bobrovsky makes a big save. But that was a difficult puck for Aho to control. So I think just getting a shot off was pretty good. I'm not apologizing for Aho. I've just criticized him. But that was another opportunity. But I don't consider that one that, oh, man, you got to do better there. I just think it was difficult for him to handle the puck. He had a great pass to Svechnikov in the second period that Andre's probably got to finish, but he couldn't handle the pass. The pass had some steam on it. It was a hard pass from Aho, but it looked like that could have been handled by Svechnikov. It might have been off the ice, but again, these guys are elite, and we see them knock pucks down out of midair on the regular. But it wasn't a great game from Aho. Again, I'll give him a B-. And one final thing. Because Carolina they never really got to their game. But I thought that Aho goal at the end of the first period would trigger a second period surge for them. They've been so good in second periods. Florida has too, by the way. And after the first couple of shifts, your fourth line and your third pair gets caught out. Jackson Blake comes back down the ice after he's part of the offensive. They had a scoring chance there, but the shot is wide. Blake comes down. He's a little slow getting back. Rather than go down the middle with Mikkola, he skates to the outside with Nosek when Gostisbehere was already there. You didn't have to go help Gostisbehere there. You could have taken Mikkola. So if you bust it down the middle of the ice, maybe Nosek can't get the pass to Mikkola, who got the pass across to A.J. Greer. This was the one play where, man, I can't even fault Scott Morrow here. There wasn't anything for him to do because Blake didn't get to his man. Morrow had two guys to deal with. The pass goes to Mikkola. He tries to get over to Mikkola. He just slid it over to A.J. Greer. That was the goal. But Blake needs to do better there. Don't go to a guy who's already covered. Get back, play defense. But like I said, wasn't a great game for Jackson Blake tonight. It felt like a rookie game for Jackson Blake tonight. It was certainly one of those for Scott Morrow. Okay. Couple of quick things that I think Rod Brind'Amour should do for game 2. The first is this. Roslovic wasn't bad tonight, and he was good at the faceoff circle. But for my money, I think you're a better team with Mark Jankowski than Jack Roslovic. So that's the first change I would make. I would go to Jankowski in the middle and bring Roslovic out of the lineup. Or, and I know this is going to maybe be upsetting, it would be to me, and I think it would be to the player, you could slide Roslovic over to the wing and pull Jackson Blake out of the lineup. Again, I thought it was a disappointing game for 53. I'm not saying that's what Rod should do. I think it's an option because Roslovic, again, wasn't terrible tonight. Plus, you keep that right-handed shot. Problem is, that's a spot on the power play somebody's got to take. With all of that said, I just assumed put Jankowski in, pull Roslovic out. I don't know. Maybe Tyson Jost gets a look somewhere because he has not played a playoff game yet. And every time Jost has played, I think he has looked good. Again, this series is going to be one with some aggression and some serious puck pursuit. Blake is good at that. He just wasn't tonight. But so the first change I would make would be there. The second change I would make, honestly, you hope Jalen Chatfield can come back in. Not sure that's going to happen. My conversation with the head coach today led me to believe that he is not optimistic that Chatfield will be back Thursday. That we are looking hopefully by Saturday. I will say this. In Florida, you got to have Jalen Chatfield in the lineup. Your team has to be able to overcome these injuries. You got 5 top-flight defensemen. Use them. And if you have to be really, really careful with whoever that 6th D-man is, then everybody else gets more ice time. But Carolina's top 5 should be able to handle it if you play a good game. And in game 2, Hurricanes got to get to their game. We haven't even talked about the penalty kill, which gave up 2 power play goals tonight and 3 tries. Carolina did get a power play goal, but they lost the special teams battle, and I think they lost it decisively. You can't do that. You can't lose a game because of special teams. Rod talked about the power play being the difference tonight. One of, for sure, falling behind was the real problem tonight. It'll do it for us. We're brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it is for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sammy Hanna and his crew do a great job. We'll try to work out the kinks technically for next time. And next time is Thursday. We're available wherever you get your podcast. Rate, review, subscribe, like, share, tell your friends, do all of it. And hopefully Carolina will come back and mix in an Eastern Conference Finals win for the first time in 19 years. Yeesh. Good night, everybody. I appreciate your time. We'll see you next time.